From the beginning, man believed that high mountains must be the home of superior beings. The cones glisten like the spires of a higher kingdom. Framed against the sky in snow-white robes, these mystic ascetics exercise an unshakable fascination in man. They seem to represent his unbending aspiration to transcend the mundane and attain the unachievable. Success with smaller peaks encouraged man to set his gaze on the big ones. The live and let die motto upheld by these merciless giants further enhanced their appeal, and the adventurer, with the zeal of a fanatic, devoted every nerve and fiber to just one cause: to befriend these Goliaths of nature, to stand triumphant on their summit. Of the great mountains of the world, there are few that can match the beauty and remoteness of Kangchenjunga. The very name means 5 treasure houses of snow. It is said that Kangchenjunga is a far tougher proposition than Everest, and what is more natural than that mountaineers should take up that challenge time and again. Kangchenjunga is the 3rd highest peak in the world at 28,200 feet. It is situated some 45 miles to the north of Darjeeling and about 80 miles to the east of Mount Everest on the border of Sikkim and Nepal. In the past, the way to Kangchenjunga led through Sikkim, but later a successful attempt was made from the southwest face, approached via the Yalung Glacier in 1955 by the British. After several unsuccessful attempts, it was successfully scaled by the Indian Army from the eastern ridge via the Zemu Glacier in 1977 and from the northwest face via the Kangchenjunga Glacier in 1979, again by the British. If the task of scaling a mountain higher than 8,000 meters was exceedingly ambitious, the scale of preparations was no less Herculean. The first civilian expedition from India, mounted by Girivihar, a Bombay-based mountaineering club, was joined by a few other clubs. Preparation for the expedition started almost 2 years in advance, after obtaining the booking from the government of Nepal. Sophisticated mountaineering hardware and other equipment had to be imported from UK. Carefully planned and selected food items were packed and labeled in numerous boxes according to their use in various stages of mountaineering. The load, weighing 9 tons, left Bombay by truck along with the advance party and headed for Hile in Nepal on the approach route to the base camp on the Yalung Glacier beneath the southwest face of Kangchenjunga.
Kangchenjunga, formidable massif straddling the borders of Nepal and Sikkim, is the 3rd highest peak in the world. It is said that Kangchenjunga is even more difficult than Mount Everest. It is a team of 24 members who are from many different walks of life who have come together for this overpowering dream to scale Mount Kangchenjunga. This is going to be a taste of human endurance, technical skill on rock, snow and ice. The inclement weather, fierce winds, blizzards, the bone-chilling cold, the rarefied atmosphere, and the stress of sustained high-altitude climbing is going to force this team together into a single being. fired by the passion and the zeal to climb this mountain, the Kangchenjunga. The sheer size of this mountain is quite staggering. And to meet this challenge, we as a team of 24 mountaineers have come together. The total weight of food and equipment is 10,000 kilograms. And we would be taking about 16 days to reach the base of this mountain. And the base camp is going to be over here at 18,200 feet on the northern bank of Yalung Glacier. Then the route takes us through these ice crevasses and ice pinnacles over to the hump ridge. Camp 1 is going to be here. Then we climb to the top of the hump ridge, and Camp 2 is going to be somewhere over here. And then in the upper ice fall is going to be Camp 3, and at the start of the Great Shelf is going to be Camp 4 at an altitude of about 24,000 feet. And this particular feature is known as Great Shelf. We will have our last camp, that is Camp 6, approximately over here, at the base of this rock feature called Sickle. Camp 6 will be at 26,000 feet. Then the route follows this gangway, approaching almost the saddle between Yalungkang and the main summit. We turn to the right to approach the main summit, and that's our dream, the main summit of Kangchenjunga. The advance party has already left Bombay on 22nd February. The Honorable Prime Minister flagged off the expedition on 23rd February. And right at this moment, all of us are readying to go to the base of our dream and get started.
The rest of the party of 20 members left Bombay for Calcutta by train on 13th March 1988. A bus rushed them to Biratnagar in Nepal via Jogbani. Soaring spirits were given a lift by two twin otters that smoothly landed them at a height of 8,000 feet at Taplejung. The rustic Nepali surroundings and the crisp mountain air were a welcome change from the heat and dust of the city. Basically farmers growing potatoes and rice, the hardy Nepalis are not untouched by poverty. They are forced to take up the back-breaking hardships of portering in cruel climatic and topographical conditions for meager lucre. There is much hefting and denunciation of the load by the porters before any journey in these mountains can begin. The trek has now begun. The approach march to the site of the base camp takes at least 12 days from Taplejung. Uneven rocky paths wind through furrowed, verdant mountainsides. This is the way of foot travel in Nepal. Steeply up and steeply down labyrinthine valleys. Civilization is left behind with Yamphudin, the last village or route. Within just a few days, an eternity seems to have been crossed. In the clean air and absence of all noise, in the harmony and seeming plenty, came whispers of a paradisal age. Crossing thick virgin forests through valleys, and walking with sprightly steps on swinging overhanging bridges spanning rocky hills. Tents were put up in the heart of the thickly forested region. A 13,000-foot-high pass was crossed en route to Torantan. Mammoth boulders often provided shelter at night. Into the valley of Simbua Kola, which is formed by the melted waters of the Yalung Glacier. Swollen and tempestuous, the river thunders onwards, enclosed by steep mountainsides in milk-white effulgence. The virgin forests gave way to a pine expanse, which gradually diminished into shrubs and grass, and finally disappeared. A week after the trek began, another camp at Seram, surrounded by snowy peaks. At 13,000 feet, Seram is a diversion point for the northwest and southwest faces of Kangchenjunga. The members flexed their muscles and attempted some bouldering and rock climbing. Kaburu at 24,500 feet, Rathong 22,000 feet, the Chari Pass, which is a gateway to India, and Koktan 20,000 feet, flanked the last camp at Ramser before embarking onto the Yalung Glacier at 15,000 feet near the glacier snout. The party stayed here for acclimatization before penetrating deeper into the ice desert. Beyond Ramser, the route lay through 15 miles of the Yalung Glacier. After a steep and slippery descent of 800 feet, this river of moraine is an incoherent, jumbled mass of ice pinnacles and chasms. Every so often, a loud rumble announced the descent of some boulders into the bowels of the glacier. It is almost entirely covered by grey and brown rubble. Base camp was established near Pache's grave at 18,200 feet on the right bank of the Yalung Glacier on 26th March by the advance party. The entire team assembled here on 6th April. The site was soon converted into a tiny, colorful village festooned with Tibetan flags. The members invoked Lord Ganesh for success in this adventure, while the Sherpas invited a Lama to perform religious rituals. The call of Kangchenjunga now seemed more insistent. The real upward journey now began. Towards Camp 1, which was already established by the advance party. No gentle slopes to start with. The southwest face of Kangchenjunga presented a 150-foot high vertical wall of rock-hard ice at the very outset. After the wall, the traverse through a short ice field was crisscrossed with crevasses. An extremely steep and exposed ascent on the hump ridge just below Camp 1. Camp 1 was established at 19,600 feet. The route to Camp 2 was technically difficult and required a lot of skill and application to fix. The sheer magnitude of the mountain was staggering. The route was prone to numerous avalanches. Extreme exposure and hard ice made the traverse that followed very laborious. As the height increased, each step became a painful effort in the rarefied atmosphere. Camp 2 was set up on top of the hump ridge at 21,000 feet and functioned as an advanced base camp. Throughout the hectic climbing schedule, constant inter-camp coordination and communication was maintained over the walkie-talkie. At the base camp, supplies were sorted and measured out for the higher camps. Mountaineering hardware too was distributed as per requirements. Load ferrying started and continued every day in all weather conditions to keep the chain going. Lofty Talung and Janu stood as silent witnesses to the determined endeavor of the expedition. One wrong step would have meant an abysmal plunge of 3,000 feet into the crevasse-ridden lower ice fall. A cautious climb up a 25-foot ladder leading to a very difficult traverse on a vertical rock. After the traverse, an intimidating expanse of bottomless crevasses was encountered. Crevasses are gaps in the icy surface. These seemingly shallow bottoms are often hundreds of feet deep. Then came a 3-kilometer-long Maidan, a test of patience and endurance at every step, proceeding wearily and warily towards Camp 3. The smooth expanse of snow in the middle of the upper ice fall at 22,300 feet was chosen as the site for Camp 3.
Yeah, you would go in the morning, get up in the morning, pack your load in your sack, make a load ferry, then have lunch also in between, pack lunch in between, then come back, change your socks, get dry and all that, and then generally start cooking dinner and then be in bed at about 7 o'clock. Camp 1 to Camp 2 had a very technical route, climbing on ice and snow. And even Camp 2 to Camp 3, there was about a 20-25 foot ladder which you had to negotiate. But the distances between Camp 2 and Camp 3 and Camp 4 were extremely very large, very long, interminable slopes which you had to get across.
Approaching Camp 4.
Yeah, Camp 4 was at about 24,000, about 500 feet. Basically, no problem over there. I think I was a bit maybe exhausted by that time. Already 28 days in almost a month in the higher camps. Even though we are all together, all cooped up in tents for so long with each other, we see the same faces all the time. Still, team spirit and all is very good, because we've been together for the last 2 years. This whole expedition being planned and all that. Even the training sessions that we've had and all that. So all that has, built up, fostered team spirit so that it would not have any effect on the higher camps at high altitude.
Clouds gathered menacingly and snow flew from the tops. Winds howled. Bad weather engulfed the entire mountain. The storm on 8th May raged on relentlessly for 10 hours. Visibility became absolutely poor, and a near-complete whiteout threatened progress. The team at Camp 3 miraculously survived, as one tent was torn to shreds and 2 other tents collapsed during the night. At every camp, tents had to be unearthed from the debris of snow.
One of our high altitude Sherpa at camp number 2, that is at a height of about 21,500 feet, had developed this acute mountain sickness, that is high altitude pulmonary edema, and he was continuously coughing and was not able to breathe at all and was not able to talk a single sentence. So he was immediately brought down by 2 of our members and he was attended properly, given high flow nasal oxygen, given injection Lasix, given tablet Diamox, and patient responded very well within a period of 3 to 4 hours, and he was in a position to go again back to camp number 2 after a period of 4 to 5 days. At high altitude, usually above 12,000 feet above the sea level, the people usually develop problems regarding the respiratory system. Due to low oxygen tension as compared to the sea level, in this area, initially the people develop headache, then breathlessness, chest pain and palpitations. Usually, if not treated or attended properly at this stage, patient can develop what is known as high altitude pulmonary edema, in which condition the patient develops water in the lungs and not able to speak as well as not able to breathe. To avoid all these problems, in these expeditions, we had selected the members who had done the basic as well as the advanced mountaineering courses at high altitudes. The second thing was the graded acclimatization, and the third thing was we had started on each and every member a tablet Diamox or acetazolamide in a dose of 1 tablet twice a day.
Sanjay Barole, deputy leader, was given the Indian tricolour by the leader Vasant Limai. Dilip, another deputy leader, displays the plaque given by the Prime Minister to be enshrined on the summit. The final thrust towards the summit began. Camp 5 was set up below the rocks of the Kangchenjunga central summit at 25,200 feet. It is possible to look into Sikkim over the Talung saddle only from this height. The eyes now travel from the south summit to the central and come to rest on the main summit, the final destination. On 11th May, Charuhas Joshi and 2 other Sherpas proceeded towards the Sikkim. Camp 6 was put up at an altitude of 26,000 feet at the base of the Sikkim. Here the night froze to 40 degrees Celsius below zero.
On this 11th of May, actually earlier it was planned that 2 members plus 2 Sherpa would try for the summit. But due to Sherpa problem, finally it was decided around 12 o'clock in the noon that only myself with 2 more Sherpas will go and occupy Camp 6, and on 12th May will attempt for the summit. On 12th we got up in the morning but couldn't start before 8:30 due to severe cold, and around 1:30 to 2 o'clock that is PM, we reached just below the final rocks. We carried more than 1,000 feet rope, assuming that all the way we will be fixing the rope. But finally we ended up fixing more than 1,000 feet rope. But since we didn't reach the summit, the balance rope we just dumped over there for the convenience of the second attempt. Around 1:30 to 2 p.m. we decided to give up our attempt and return back. At Camp 6 we didn't stop, we straight away came to Camp 5 around 5:30, 6 o'clock in the evening. Same time my fingers started paining, and in the night time it was a real horrible time. All my 10 fingertips were paining like anything. But later on, the next day and thereafter, I discovered only 3 fingers of my left hand got affected and 1 finger of right hand.
Bad weather once again foiled the schedule, and the second attempt by Uday Kolwankar and 2 Sherpas had to be postponed till 16th May.
On 15th, we spent the whole day in reorganizing the Camp 6 and preparations for summit attempt. We could take some rest also. Then on 16th, we got up at about 2 o'clock early morning and started preparing tea and water for 3 of us. And we could start at 5:30 in the morning. On the rock, there was heavy snow deposition and it was very difficult to move. At about 7 a.m., we reached the high point of the first summit party on fixed rope. There onwards, we proceeded roped up, and at about 12 o'clock, we reached top of the gangway. Clouds started covering the entire valley. It worried us, but we still continued for another hour. Then there was near whiteout. Visibility was very poor. Our limbs were very cold. Descent would have become extremely dangerous due to fresh snow. So we had to turn back, just 500 feet short of the summit. From our high point, looking at South Summit, coal between Yalungkang and Main Summit, Yalungkang and Main Summit.
While the high drama of the summit attempt occupied everyone's attention, a tragedy was unfolding lower down. Sanjay Borole, who had gone up to Camp 4 as the summit attempt leader, had taken ill and was not in top form. On 16th May, he came down to Camp 3. But on the next day, 17th May, it was more difficult as he had to be carried towards Camp 2 where medical treatment could be given. The weather suddenly took a turn for the worse. Tremendous exhaustion and the bone-chilling cold resulted in hypothermia, which sapped his strength. He breathed his last on a rope ladder a mere 20 minutes from Camp 2. Although the attempts on the final summit were unsuccessful by a few hundred feet, the expedition proved to be an intense lesson in mountaineering. The Girivihar Nepal Expedition 1988 became the first civilian expedition from India to be launched on one of the 14 8,000ers. 2 members of this team climbed above 8,000 meters, one reaching 26,900 feet and the other up to 27,700 feet. Uday Kolwankar became the first amateur mountaineer in India to go to a height of 27,700 feet without artificial oxygen. 10 members out of 24 reached above 24,000 feet. 9 members could reach Camp 5 at an altitude of 25,200 feet. Almost 15 members stayed above an altitude of 20,000 feet continuously for 28 days to a month. These high mountains test human endurance, and success can be elusive. But these unpleasant memories soon fade. Only the pleasant and the exhilarating experiences remain to inspire the adventurer to greater, higher, and tougher endeavors. It is the human spirit that is indomitable, and not Kangchenjunga. Kangchenjunga is still as enigmatic, as forbidding, and as beautiful as ever. All in all, the experience gained in climbing an 8,000er was vast and rich. It has become a firm stepping stone, a solid foundation to look towards other big ones, which is a dream that now seems much closer than ever.